we said ain mumin don't disqualify birds, but it wasn't meant kol mumin. That was an important word I had. Ain kol amun postin bo. I'm going to put this on the screen. It's the third chapter of Issurei Mizbeach. Issurei Mizbeach means things you shouldn't put on the Mizbeach, right? Shouldn't offer blemished animals as sacrifice. It has to always be the best. Give the best to God. It's a musar. Basically it teaches you proper behavior. Here's Issurei Mizbeach. And I'm going to put on the screen for the benefit of those watching at home and those on YouTube. So we saw this halacha last week. Okay. So ein makir chaser klal v'chein im noad bo achaf min hatrefot she'osrin oto b'achila. If you have a bird, just like an animal that you know it's a treifah even before you sacrifice it, and slaughter it, so it is disqualified for sacrifice. Torim ktanim psulim. Tor is turtle doves. Okay, and it says Tor o b'nei Yonah, b'nei sons of the Yonah. Those are doves. So the Torim, the pigeons, are disqualified while they're still young. Uvnei Yonah gedolim psulim, and b'nei Yonah doves, when they're adults, they're puzzled. Shnemar mina Torim says from the pigeons, o min b'nei hayonah. What does it teach? Because it says b'nei. That's the main word. Sons. Techilat tzihuv bazeh vazeh pasul. When you start to get the tzihuv it becomes shiny. Okay, it means to get this yellow shininess in the feathers, whatever that means. I've never seen it, but apparently they show you can see a picture of people who know their birds have seen this, that the feathers change. So that's when they're pasul. Vad matayu b'nei yonah ksherim. So b'nei yonah are ksherim right when they're born. Well, right, not exactly when, right when they're young. So once they get to this tzihuv stage, then they become pasul because they're not b'nei yonah anymore. Kol zaman shoker kanaf mitmalei makom yikarod dam. How you know they're still young? Because if you pluck out one of their feathers, you'll see that the follicle, the feathers have follicles. What do they call the place of the root of the feather? The blood comes out. If you pluck out a person's hair, that comes out of a follicle. Va'turim ksherim, and the pigeons are kosher at that stage, and mishias hivu, that is, they become kosher once they pass this stage of tzihuv. Okay, so that's being an adult pigeon past the tzihuv stage, where ben yonah below this tzihuv stage. I think there's a machlokas here. Rashi says that this stage, mitzayenet chilat atchlat zman kashru b'nei yonah shekein b'yom haledahim osim ufsidin korban. They can't. It's not exactly right when they're first born, obviously. Why? Because they're still ichi in a certain way. Just like an animal has 8 days before it can become a korban, so too, not exactly the first day. Okay. I wish that we had more experience with these birds. I don't think people catch pigeons and turtle doves like they used to. But in the olden days, people used to have dovecotes. This was a thing that they used to eat a lot more commonly. I have never met a person who eat pigeons or doves before. 100% kosher. They talk about a large part of Maseches Beitza, egg, talks about what? Catching, what is it? Preparing, as designating which pigeons or doves a person's going to take from the dovecote on Yontif. Also, how do you catch these things? Imagine people used to bring bird korbanos to the temple. They fly away very easily. At least they knew how to hold on to them and catch them. We have no experience doing this, only certain people. So this is another thing that we're going to have to learn. Tumtum androgynous. Tumtum is you don't know what it is. And androgynous is it's both. It's a hermaphrodite. Even though there's nothing more blemished than that, it's not a moon per se. It's not one of the mumim that we described earlier. They're invalid as sacrifice for the altar for a different reason. The fishain safek zakar safek nikeva. They're safek, whether male or female. There's a doubt. Hare hain kamin acher. So they're a different species altogether. It means a different gender. Move korbanot ne'amar zachar tamim. Every time it talks about the korbanot, it says, he brings a few psukim, a few times in the scripture, it says, an unblemished male, or nikeva tamima, an unblemished female. And this tumtum androgynous doesn't fall. You don't know if he's a zachar and a keva. Ad she a zachar vadai, or nekeva vadait. It has to be definitely a zachar, definitely a keva. These ones you don't know, so that's why it doesn't fit. Technical reason. V'vichach af ha'of shehu tumtum o androgenus pasul mizbeach. So too, this is we're discussing animals, all animals. That's 3:3. This halach over here. So too, it applies to birds. Birds also have this issue. It should be, even though it doesn't say when you bring a pair of birds that one has to be a male bird or a female bird specifically. This idea that it has to be something, it has to definitely be something, applies to it. What's a kilayim? Kilayim is a mixed breed. You could say, well, it's the offspring of a goat and a sheep somehow. If you could get them to a mixed breed, or it was forced by some way. So you say, well, either it's a sheep or a goat, or it's both, but both are kosher sacrifice. Nope. If it's one of these things, so it's disqualified. And a yotzei dofin, animal born of cesarean section. Umechusar zman. Mechusar zman is what? Before the 8 days. The 8 days are up. Just like a baby boy is not eligible for Mila before his 8th day, so too the Mechusar zman, an animal before its 8th day. You look when the animal is born, and you say he was born on Monday, so on Monday morning, that's when he can become a sacrifice. By the way, the Pri Megadim in this halacha talking about these 8 days classically says those 8 days are counted to the minute. So if the animal's born 8:20 a.m. in the morning, you have to wait until 8:20 a.m. in the morning. Same thing with circumcising the boy. And the other Achronim jump on him and say there's no such Torah standard. Yes, there is a Torah standard sometimes of actually counting certain things meis leis, but a lot of dinim that's not the case. And by the way, TD applies this also. The whole meis leis thing says that Kiddush Levana can only be 3 times 24 hours from the molad, based on Rabbeinu Yonah, who says 2 to 3 days, and he gives it the maximum. We've discussed this in a few shurim. The Achronim don't jump on him there because they already jumped on him in all those other places where it's an actual din d'oraisa, where he tries to invoke this whole to the minute, to the second standard, and they already rejected that. Shneimar Shoro Chesed of ways Kivaled. Okay, it says in Emor, the parsha that we read on all the holidays, says when you have an ox or a kesef or an aze, the 3 animals that can be korban, there are 3 mammals that can be korban, says when it gives birth, 7 days it should be with its mother, and from the 8th day and on it can be a korban. So this pasuk he says a drasha there it means in context that the animal has to be 8 days old, but in this case it means it has to be a shor, kesef, or an aze. It can't be a mixed breed. See, this is a Torah midash or Torah nidreshet lahem. Ki waled, should it give birth? Pratli yotzei dofen, has to be an actual birth. Remember, even men, human beings who are born cesarean section are not considered born for certain halachas. Well, yeah, you're a C-section baby. Okay, so you weren't born, huh? Okay, pratli yotzei dofen. And this one is, like I said, excludes C-sections. It shall be 7 days. Stay with its mother 7 days. It excludes one that is not 7 days old yet, or hasn't reached its 8th day. Tachatimo, with its mother. This excludes also a C-section one, but this is Yathom that was born after its mother was slaughtered. What's called a ben pikua. What's a ben pikua? You heard about this case. Somehow it got out once its mother was slaughtered. You slaughter the cow, and they discover, somehow there's a fully grown fetus in there that could live on its own. So that animal technically doesn't need to be slaughtered itself when it comes time to eat it. Oh, you have to kill it, but you don't have to slaughter it. And there was that we discussed that case of the fellow in New Zealand who wanted to have a whole flock of such animals. Because if you have a ben pikua and a baf pikua, and they reproduce together, so the children have that same status, and you'll have animals that never have to be slaughtered. Okay, so that's a little bit crazy. There's a whole Marsayan problem. Recently, the chief rabbi ruled regarding fake meat, lab-grown meat, how it's parv. Okay, so it's a little bit. Well, the problem is what Chazal say about milk-like substance made from almonds. You can make a very milky drink out of almonds. People have been talking about it since Mishneh times. So you have to show that you have almonds. So too, if you eat this fake meat, you have to show fake meat. Yeah, no, or the package that says fake meat. Whereas I remember the Rosh Kol was giving out they got a surplus of these sausages and hamburgers that were made from Beyond Meat. So one of the guys asked me, what was this? I said, it's a lo basar. I said, it's not meat. But what is it? I said, it's not meat. That's what I'm saying. That's what it says in the package. It's non-meat like substance. Oh, it tasted kind of weird. It tasted like chemicals, overly salty. Whatever. It wasn't that good anyways. But now this is basically genetically, molecularly, it's the same as meat. So you'd have to put the package there, I guess, on the table. Chazal would discuss such a thing. Before Chazal talked about fake milk. Chazal never imagined fake meat. I think that the fact is that human beings have been able to conceive of such a thing. If you have fake milk, you could have fake meat, right? But Chazal never had fake meat. You know why? Because fake milk, you need. A lot of people grow up, they become lactose intolerant. So they want to drink something. They want, almond milk is actually quite good for you. So that's good. But you can't replace meat. Chazal, there's no havamina that you could replace meat. And nowadays, I remain very skeptical. Or the cost, it's almost, there's something almost evil about it. Growing living tissues, like you said, in the petri dish and all that, it opens up a whole slew of ethical questions that we're not prepared for. Cloning, it's something that perhaps we should not be doing. Whatever, you could do it. I can't, just because I imagine that there's an ethical issue and it brings up questions doesn't mean it's ritually forbidden. What's a nidmeh? A nidmeh is an animal that's a freak. It doesn't look like it's supposed to. It's the sheep that looks like a goat, or even worse, maybe it looks like a pig or something, or an animal, a behemoth male. Kilayim, even though it's not a mixed breed, it's 100%. It's bred from sheep only. Harehu pasulam Mizbeach. It is invalid as sacrifice. Ketzad Rachel shilda kamin eis. A ewe. This is a female lamb. She's given birth to what looks like a goat. Or a goat, a she-goat, has given birth to what looks like a lamb. Lambs and goats look kind of different. You can tell them apart. Even though it looks a little bit goat-like, but I guess test it. How do you know that the letter in the Sefer Torah is wrong? You ask a regular child, what letter is this? So you say, like, is that a sheep or a goat? Like, oh yeah. Most kids could tell the difference between cats and dogs. I remember my daughter used to say, when she was a 2-year-old, everything was either a cat or a dog. So rabbits were forms of cats, and iguanas were dogs. Okay, being that this animal looks like a different species, pasul kival mum kavua. It is invalid, just like an animal that has a permanent blemish. Once again, Rambam says you don't have a bigger blemish than something that looks wrong. Just something that looks wrong or different. That's a mum. Right, like echoes what the Rambam says here with afal pishein lecha mum gadol mehem tumtum androgynous. Okay, ein lecha mum gadol mehem. You have no bigger mum than this. You have no bigger mum than that. So which one's bigger, Rambam? Nidmeh or androgynous? The point is, it's an expression. He's not being literal. And a shout out, by the way, please make this its own video. This has nothing to do with Torah. This is about the proper English dikduk. Talk about this. My father likes to stress, no one uses the word literally correctly anymore. Literally should only be used in the case where a person is using what is normally a figurative sentence, but now he's actually meaning it literally. So let's take an example. Off the wall is a figurative expression. No one was actually on the wall and just came off the wall. Off the wall means meshugana. But if you had a guy, for whatever reason, he had suction cups, he was climbing the wall, or he was up there on a ladder, and now he's jumped off the wall and he's sitting next to us here, so he's literally off the wall. We're taking a figurative expression, and now we're turning it literally. Literally is not a word you should use for emphasis. It's not a replacement for the word very. Okay, and basically any talking heads or anybody else who's spouting now the word literally, they're using the word wrongly. I would say they're literally using it wrongly. No, they're not literally using it wrongly. They're just using it wrongly. Okay, they should learn to speak. They should learn to talk good English. Okay, everybody should talk better English. The chena rovea. This is not so good. The rovea is an animal that sodomizes other animals or people. Okay, this is a crazy male that wants to do this. Sometimes they can be provoked into doing this. This is something perverted. There was the Chazal talk about Isha lo tamod lifnei beima l'riv'ah tevel. That's a tevel. right? So that's in Achremos. Why would a woman want to do such a thing? Entice an animal to want to do this to her? I don't know. There used to be, the Rambam says it was involved in certain forms of idol worship. It was a superstition, but animals can be brought to do such a thing. So an animal that's done such a thing, whatever for whatever reason, so it's disqualified. Va nirba. This means a person did something to this animal, something basically sexual to it. Yeah, there are people who are into that. Because I'll accuse, I think it was who they accuse, certain Rishayim of doing this type of thing. And there are, if the Torah forbids something, the Torah forbids bestiality, it's because you can bet that there are people out there, deviants and such, who do have a Yitzhar for such a thing, and there's even a small mute who actually have engaged in such a thing. Because I'll also assume that there are certain Gentiles who would do such a thing. You've seen the Gemara. They say that a Jew left his with this idolater. He left his animal where this idolater was, and they say that the guy who's coming to sleep with this woman will also find the Jew's lamb there and also take advantage of the lamb. Yeah, this is in the Gemara. So yeah, people do this. Or an animal that's been set aside by its owners for avodah zarah purposes, usually because it's going to be worshipped or it's going to be sacrificed for the avodah zarah. Okay, v'hane'evad, one that's actually been worshipped. They own this animal and they started bowing down to it. They worship it in some way. There are some people. We had a Professor Brill in one of the YouTube videos before. He's takes a lenient view regarding the Indian religions, how they're not idolatry. Many of us would respectfully disagree. Like that looks pretty idolatrous to us. So the question is, the animals that they venerate in India, if you hold it's idolatry, so that they're basically venerating these animals in an idolatrous manner, so that's a problem. But if you hold it's not idolatry, so it's not a problem. I don't know anything about Indian culture, so I'm not going to speak on the subject. It's good enough to see what the poskim say. One of the major poskim who is very much against, who really holds that everything they do in India is idolatry, is Rabbi Brandt, the Varisi Yitzchak. So it'd be interesting to see a debate between him and Professor Brill, Rabbi Dr. Brill. Okay. Even though, technically speaking, a Jew could eat these animals, if he ritually slaughters them, they're still kosher. He buys these all from a Gentile fellow. This animal has a history. They cannot be offered on the altar. All these animals, the one that's, like you said, this whole list. Rovea nirba muktzah avodah zarah in the Nevat. Shnemar ki moshchatam bahem. We saw this word moshchatam bahem. When the mem is part of the shor, mem is not part of the shoresh. This means their corruption was within them. The word corruption, shin chet taf. That's the shoresh over here that I'm highlighting. So l'shachet means to destroy or corrupt something. Hashchasa is what you do, marring the beard. It's also mean the modern Hebrew word for causing something to become corrupted. Shchitut is corruption. Okay, so these animals have a blemish of a corruption, and we also said that with regards to Kohanim, they're moshcha, which would be moshchatam. Also, the mem is part of the shoresh, and that means they're anointing, the act that they've been anointed. So the question is, the mem part of the shoresh or not, and you have to see it. Kol sheish bo hashchata pasul. Anything that has this corruption in it is invalid. Uva avirahu omer. With regards to avira, what's avira? Usually that's a code word for section of things. Okay? Hu omer ki yishchit kol basar. It says before the flood, all flesh had become corrupted. Even the animals got involved in Gilui Arayos. Uva avodah zarah katuv ki shichet amecha. Moses was told when they made the egel, when they made the golden calf, says it in both in Shmos and Devarim. God told him, your people have corrupted, they've done something wrong by making an idol. Now, this is important over here. There's a thing over here about the Dor Mabul, Avera. You read the Midrashim and classical understandings of the whole Garden of Eden episode. And one of the things they say is the snake represents the Yetzer Hara personified. And they also say that the Yetzer Hara, basically the snake, has a thing for Chava, and more cryptic Midrashim out there even say that there's something sexual going on between them. He's lusting for her, even certain other things. You're familiar with these Midrashim. What I believe they're trying to say is, Chazal are telling us how the most basic Yetzer Hara, as comes out from other Midrashim, the most basic Yetzer Hara that all men have is the sexual one. Yes, there are other Yetzer Haras for theft and for idolatry. Idolatry is really, most people don't have necessarily a Yetzer Hara. If they grow up in a nice Jewish home, it's very little, like they say. That one basically disappeared. A lot of people don't have a Yetzer Hara for eating non-kosher foods, whatever it is. There's some Yetzer Haras I see, like, I don't fathom how some people have them. The other ones I can understand because I have them, And the point is that the most basic Yetzer Hara, whenever Chazal say Yetzer Hara without any modifiers, the one that's shavel l'chol, and the one that's present in everything, and even among animals, is that one, the physical one, for the opposite sex. So that's why it says Avera here, the most basic Avera that everybody has, to which everybody's pulled. You have an animal, whether behema or oaf. Remember, there's only 3 kinds of behemoths and 2 types of birds that can be offered on the altar that kill the person. They're like one that is sodomized or has been sodomized. So they're also invalid. And I pointed out, I corrected myself, that there's in the next chapter he's going to qualify this. He says if the animal had been antagonized, they were playing with it and trying to poke it and stuff, basically like they do in the bullfights in the land of the idolaters. So that animal is innocent if it killed. Like I said, sometimes the bull beats the matador. I say that the matador deserved it. He was doing Tsar Bar-Hayim, and he was also engaged in an act that is connected to Avodah Zarah. So if the animal defended itself, just like a person, if you're doing that to a human being, I'd say that the human being has the right to kill his tormentor. So to this animal, since this animal has done nothing wrong, that would make it invalid for sacrifice. Okay. It seems the Rambam is going to give his own opinion here. Even though all these invalidations make something not fit for korban, if a person would make them into sacrifice, he already slaughtered it through the blood, etc. He's not to be lashed for as though he violated Torah commandment. Because it doesn't say these explicitly. Okay, he's talking about behema of sharguet ha'adam. That's explicit. But let's see. Maybe he's talking about also the nidbeh, the androgynous, because the kilayim, the yotzei dofen, and the one that's born the yasom, as he says, right? The ones in this halacha over here in Gimel Dalid, those are all based on psukim. See, the ones in Gimel Dalid, those are based on psukim. Basically saying the ones that are not. Mosh chasem vahem mumbam, but that's a pasuk. So which ones is Rambam talking about specifically? You have a note. Makbili was Makbili say which ones? Says Sha'afal Pisha ain't Klop Sulim. He says Klop Sulim Ha'elu. When he says Klop Sulim Ha'elu, I know he's talking about an animal that killed a person, because it doesn't mention that in any pasuk. But which other ones are included in this? Does he say? It's a good question.
Not that I can see it, but I also don't read this.
Well, okay. Too many other books here. Baruch Hashem, we have to. The Gabbai farm has to come and clean up on Thursday, late Thursday, because we're taking a lot of sparm out. We have the Kitzur over here. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch doesn't discuss Kachim at all. Does that mean I have to keep it? No. Someone said first study Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and Chayodam. Problem is, you study Chayodam Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, you won't know how to tie Tchilas onto your tzitzis. Okay, problem. Fine. So what the Rambam includes in this Yera Eli, I am uncertain. Only the ones that says why not. Vishanot Parsha is Haratan. So you could say no, as Haratan means the punishment. Therefore, okay. Remember, an Azhara isn't necessarily this. Okay. Okay. So I'd like to see this more. We'll make a note of this, which means we'll just stop here for now and go. No, we're not gonna stop.
This is the above explanation on this.
Excuse me for a minute. Fine. So let's see the next halacha. This is also an interesting one about definitions. We're going to talk about the hire of a harlot. The hire of a harlot, or the price of a dog, the payment for a dog. Person buys a dog. These are forbidden to turn into a korban. That means a person gives the prostitute a sheep or he trades this person for his, pit bull. He wants, give him a goat or something. So those would become forbidden. What the exact definition of a zona is, we're going to see. That's an already halachic question. Rambam transposes the definition in Issurei. He transposes it to here, and Rashi and Tosfos don't, because that's not what it's talking about. It's different context. Zona means different things in different contexts. Okay, person who offered one of these things, esnan zona or mechir kelev, shten ke'echad lo ke'achas. He does both of them, or both same. It was one that it was qualified as one. He used the same animal for both. Okay, he should still be lashed once. Don't bring etnanzana and a mechir kelev. They have one, thou shalt not. So he manages to bring both to the temple as a sacrifice. One goat is an esnanzona, one goat is a mechir kelev. So he's only lashed once. Okay, we're going to get into these more in the next chapter. It's a positive commandment, not just a law. Don't bring an animal that's not old enough yet. It's a positive commandment to bring an animal once it's 8 days old. As it says, 7 days it should be literally under its mother, but it's a figurative expression. Doesn't mean it has to be literally under its mother. But usually that's where they're found, by the way. Why? Because they're usually nursing there. But in this case, it means stay with its mother, not literally under. See, we're explaining what literally means. And from the 8th day on, Yeratzeh. Hala is interesting. It's actually like the word Laila and Me'uma. In other words, it ends in Kamathe. It's actually pronounced Mil'el. Laila, Me'uma, and Hala are all pronounced Mil'el. Normally you have a Kamathe at the end of a word, it's pronounced Milra. But this is actual what? Okay, Laila means night. Not Laila. It's Laila, Mil'el. It's a poetic form of the word Lail. And Me'uma means nothing. Okay? Me'uma biyadecha. So it's Me'uma. Okay? And Hala is also pronounced Mil'el. Okay? Yeratzeh. It will be accepted as sacrifice. The Chol Shivat Yamim, Hu Nikra Mechusar Zman. Those first 7 days, it's called Mechusar Zman. Not yet missing days or missing time. La'afal Pisha Mechusar Zman Pasul. Even though this animal, if it's Mechusar Zman, it's too young, is unfit for sacrifice. Imavarvik Rivo, if he did go and sacrifice it, Eino Loke should not be lashed. Mipneshahu Lava Bami Klal Asay. It is a prohibition that comes from an implied Asay. It says Asay, do this, meaning that you can't do what's not. V'lo nirtzah korban, and also this korban is not accepted because it says explicitly only once it's the 8th day is Yeratzeh. Normally, Rambam could have a question: is it nirtzah or not? Is it accepted as sacrifice or not? So the sages deal with this. But in this case, the pasuk says very clearly: if it's not 8 days old, it is not accepted as sacrifice. Yeratzeh. Torim shelo yigiaz manam. Let's say you have pigeons; they haven't come of age yet. Shein kim chusar zman b'vehema. That's like an animal, a goat, let's say, that's not 8 days old yet. By the way, it takes a long time for pigeons to grow up. It's not the first 8 days and then it's done. You have a lot of time. Or turtle doves that have now become too old, whatever time that is. Hakol kival moon. Now it's as though blemished. But the person who offers them also is not to be lashed. Why not? He still is not lashed, even though this korban is invalid. And of course, it's not accepted. If it's invalid, it's not accepted. Okay. Hold on a second. They mentioned here. Rambam says Maisa Korbanos, just as a matter of propriety. Really, they wouldn't take Korbanos even after 8 days. They wait at least a month. Okay, month for it to it looks better. Yeah. We have an interesting Ravid coming up, so let's see it. You don't have Ravid. I don't know why. I mean, I like it. Ravid is a very good response to the Rambam. We saw some really, really good ones, but for some reason they imprinted the Makbili. I guess they're focusing strictly on the Rambam, but it's good to have other opinions there. Yod or Yod Aleph, whichever one it is. Hamakdish tumtum ben droganus utrefa v'chilayim v'yosei dofen. Let's say a person did dedicate these two for korban. He takes these obviously invalid animals. It's a both or it's a treifa. He knows that's a treifa because it sustained a wound. It's a kilayim. It's a yotzi dofen. It's as though he dedicated sticks and stones, inanimate objects. Person who dedicates sticks and stones to the temple, so that goes to the temple fund. No sanctity can. Chal is a funny word. In Yiddish, they say goes on their bodies. It basically means that these actual animals cannot become sanctified. It's a drogonus. You can't say this animal will be a korban. It can't become a korban. It doesn't happen. It's like I didn't say anything, but its value is now owned by the temple. So they're basically secular. They're still secular food. You can, by the way, slaughter an androgynous and eat it. Right? Still kosher. Now, whether an animal is male or female doesn't affect the kashrus of the animal once you slaughter it. Still got to salt the blood and check for trephus and things. So what do you do with these animals? They've been dedicated to the temple. They cannot be sacrificed because they're inherently disqualified. So they should be sold. The macharu, the temple treasurer sells them. And then this fellow who was intending to, he dedicated this animal. He said, this animal should be a korban. Instead, sells the animal. Now he has money in his hands. Now the money becomes a korban. He'll buy a proper animal. Whatever it says, Rambam says over here, kol any animal he wants. Or any korban, whether it could be even nesech or a minach or a mincha.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be the same species as.
Well, let's say it was a kilaim. He's kind of confused what species it is, but you understand. Okay. The eno kivalmum shabalmum yesh b'mino korban. This isn't like a balmum because a balmum, at least you could say that this is a lamb. So lambs are offered to sacrifice. So let's see what the Ravid says. I'll read you a note here first. It says here, Mikivan shakdusha lo chal gufam yachol liknot b'dmehem kol korban she'yirtzeh. You could take the money and just buy something else. V'lav dafka et amin shelishmo hikdisham. If it was a balmum, you might have a havamin and say, you know what? I dedicated a sheep. I want to bring a sheep as a sacrifice. So now I have it's a balmum, so I got to find a different sheep to take its place. Okay. Balmum at yesh b'mino korban. So let's read the Ravid here. Let me see here. I'll read this other note first before we read the Ravid inside. Sug zeh shel ba'alei chaim karev. At least with a balmum, if I have a sheep that's blemished, sheep are brought as a korban. Male sheep are brought as a korban. There's no such thing as a tumtum or a drogonus or a treifa or a kilayim sheep brought as a korban. These categories, there's no such thing as that ever being brought. And a treifa, we know it's been attacked by a wild wolf. It's going to die soon. It's a goner. So that's the case in Hulun that they mentioned. So I can't even eat that thing anymore. So of course I know it can't be a korban. Rive it inside. It said, Rambam says this. He could bring whatever animal he wants with the money. Then say he could do with it whatever he wants. Okay, notice that. Yavi bid mayhem. He has to bring a korban with them, not do whatever he wants with the animals, with the money, treat it like hulin. The money is still holy. Remember, the money is still holy. It must be that this fellow said, how did he dedicate it? He said, these are for the Mizbeach. Myri. Why? If he said this tumtum or drogonus, this is for the Mizbeach. So he has to turn this animal into money and then bring something to the Mizbeach, because he did say, I'm going to bring something to the Mizbeach. That's his intention. Mm-hmm. He was dedicating something that cannot be brought to the Mizbeach, so he could pick something else. He could turn this money from this sheep that was totally blemished and turn it into a mincha. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know, whatever else you could possibly bring on the altar, even eitzim, mm-hmm. right? Even wood you could dedicate to we saw that. You could buy wood to give to the altar. Fine. Myri, v'lo shor harei elu korban. If you said elu korban, that's not true. They can't be a korban. Dilu amarachi, if he had said elu korban, which they cannot be, lo kidesh klal, then it would be nothing. So the Ravid's Medaik that the guy had to at least say he mentioned Mizbeach, because if he said Harezo Ola, Hareze Korban, okay, this animal that can't be a Korban is a Korban. Nothing happened. Must be said mentioned Mizbeach. V'im Kain, and therefore, if this is so, Balmum Nami Kiai Gav Nahavi. So with the Balmum, he said about a Balmum. Balmum, he has to say Balmum for that is not Balmum is an Ola, because if it's Balmum, of course it can't be an Ola, it can't be Kadosh. You have to say Lemizbeach in order to affect some sort of Kedusha in there.
Even at a time that he doesn't know that it has a name.
Yeah. So if he said a Balmum Lamizbeach, so he has to then transfer that animal sell that animal, take that money, and bring a different non-blemished of that animal. But if it's one of these guys, he has to transfer its money, its value into something else, and then bring whatever he wants because he just said Lamizbeach. Okay. Says in Shmura, Amar al Behema Tmeya vel Balas Mum Hare Elu Ola Lo Amar Klum. Says about Behema Tmeya, a lion, a cat, a donkey. That's an Ola. It's like, or a Balmum, a kosher animal. That's a Balmum. It's like you didn't say anything. Nothing happened. Hare Elu Ola, if he says these should be an Ola, you lit Ola. Says lit Ola, for going up in the Mizbeach, the preposition, which implies there's a Mizbeach, Yimachru v'yabibid behem Olos. Then they should be sold and brought burnt offerings instead of them. Because now, at least there's a Mizbeach involved. Okay, very good duke of the Ravid. So you have to watch what you say. This, by the way, says that's a suk of Nadarim, by the way. The Dharma is when a person says, this should be, I promise. There's two types of Dharma. Says there's the Neder, remember, that a person takes upon himself to bring a korban. I'm going to bring a korban, or I'm going to make this a korban. Achrayus, there's the different halachic categories. But in honor of Masechta that everybody finished today, present company excluded. I'm not finished with the Dharma yet. Usually I'm behind. Okay, whatever. Daf Yomi is not for everybody. It goes too fast. You know.
If it was Ahmad Yomi, that made
What?
Ahmad Yomi.
I heard people who do. They said I had a chavru said Daf Yomi back in the day. He was an astrophysicist. He finished Shas twice before the age of 30.
Wow.
Okay, but he's a genius. He's a mild mannered genius. Like, look, you can do it. Some of us don't have the brain power for that. I don't know. I wish I could do that fast. Whatever, still behind. Okay. But I close my Rambam. This is my Ravid. Person dedicates. Well, he said one of these animals, the sodomized animal, or the one that did the sodomizing, or an animal that had been set aside for Gentile for avodah zarah sacrifice, or had been worshipped as a god. Or the hire of a harlot, or the sale of a dog. This is always dedicated an animal that has a temporary blemish. So we do with that in such a case. So set them out to pasture until they develop a permanent mum. We padu allow. Okay, and then let them be redeemed. Is then you sell them off and transfer their money into transfer their holiness into money. You get something else. Person who dedicates an animal that's too young, it's only 3 days old. It's as though he's dedicating an animal to temporary blemish and a lokek, and just wait for the moon to go away. That is, wait for it to get older. Okay, but he's not to be lashed. We said Allah Ches said Mechusar's man pasulim avar kro eno lokek. Mechusar's man, there's no penalty involved in it. Why? Because it's a lavmi klal saying. Now the Rambam is going to go over this list. Pay very careful attention. The Mefarshim go have a little fun with this because this list is incomplete. Rambam told you a lot of things are forbidden to the altar, and now he's going to say, and here's the complete list, but some things are missing. Let's read it. 14 disqualifications. Eluhain, Baalmum, blemished animal. She'eno minamuvkar, saying it's not of the choicest, inferior. Husar aver bimifnim, missing an internal organ. Treifa, saying that sustained a mortal injury. Kill ayin, mixed breed. Yotze dofen, born of cesarean section. Rovea, a sodomizing animal. Nirba, been sodomized. Shemithat adam, one that killed a person. Hane'avad, one worshipped as an idol. Hamukse, one set aside for idolatrous sacrifice. Ha'ethnan, the hire of a harlot. Hamechir, one traded for a dog. And a mechusar's man, one that's not old enough yet. What about the nidbeh? Rambam said earlier in halacha, was it halacha? Hey, nidbeh, an animal that just looks wrong. What about the atom? The Rambam said at the end of halacha dalid, prat liatom shenolad achar shenishach ta'imo, one born after its mother was slaughtered. What about tumtum and androgynous? The most obvious ones.
Yeah.
So what does the Makbili say? So the Ravid's the first one. Let's re-Ravid it. Amar Avram, my time lo tani yatom. Where's the orphan one he mentioned in halacha hey? He left him off the list. Ravid could ask him, where's the tumtum and androgynous? Where's the nidmeh? Good questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's the Ravid. That's the first one.
The song is included in.
So you could say they might fall into these categories. Isser zeklui b'isser yotzi dofen. A nishchata is like a yotzi dofen. It's a form of yotzi dofen. Remember, the Rambam said with regards to cesarean sections, he knew about cesarean sections of animals and of men, of beast and man. But the Rambam says in Perish Mishnayos, I can't fathom that a woman would survive a C-section. He didn't know of a woman surviving such a thing. It was only a last-ditch case where the woman's basically dead. But animals did survive C-sections. So he's including this in the case. Basically, Nishka Taimo falls into the category of C-sections because that's the only way they come out. The animal Nishka Taimo is not going to be born. It can only be cut out, bentakua. Okay, that's a good answer. And the Kesef Mishnah says, Isser Balmum Klum Gam Issurei Tumtum Vendrogonus, because Rambam said, you have a Balmum bigger than this.
Yeah, that's what this one says too.
Okay, there's no Balmum, it's like so obvious. And what was the other case? I pointed out.
Manivna is included in lion, according to Makili.
Yeah. Where's the other one that Ram said you have a moon bigger than this one? I'm forgetting myself already. That was the first one. I saw it over here. I'm looking at my book. That's the problem. So it says here. It says Shinui. The Nidma. She'en l'cha mum godol min ha-shinui. Okay, that's it. That's the Nidma. So you can understand why Rambam left these off. Like it's a good kasha in the Rambam, and then we have good answers. So once again, where's the Nidme fall in? Nidme ein l'cha mum godol mizeh. It's like a kilayim. Okay, and a yasom is on this yotzi dofen, and tumtum and drogonus. It's like, of course, it's obvious. I don't even need a puzzle to tell you that. It's just so clear, because I'll assume that. By the way, the Rambam's not going to say. The Rambam's not going to say like, of course, it's it's fundamental that it should be usher. We discussed other halachic issues that came up where some 20th century Rabbanim say it should be just pashut. This is something that upset the Rabbi Yuder when he was a conservative, big shot conservative rabbi. So it was intellectually dishonest for Orthodox poskim to say it should be patently clear that a synagogue needs mechitza between men and women. It's just so obvious it didn't even need to be said ever. It's not so obvious, he said. Okay, it's a public policy decision from the 1950s in America. But it used to be the assumption was women did go to synagogue, period, ever. There's no such time. And that's why in Morocco we go. All the classic synagogues don't have a mechitza, not because there's no dinner mechitza, it's because there's no such thing as women in synagogue. And the earlier reports were that when women actually did show up to synagogue, they just sat in the back row. They didn't mingle, but even, and like Rav Kalbach pointed out, even in the base of Mikdash, there were women in the Azaro at the time of sacrifice. There's no chashash that at such a solemn moment, there's going to be any hanky-panky. It's only when they had the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, which is after hours and celebrating, that you had to have mechitza. Okay, back to what we were doing. Yud Beis. This is a good one. So, all of these things that are forbidden to Mizbeach, there's no shiur, okay? And that means that they can't be mevatel. Feeling this arev echad beribo. You take one of these animals that's Isser Mizbeach, for whatever reason, an animal that was a roveal or a nirba, which is the hardest thing to see. At least tumtum and drogonus you can see, or maybe they worship the animal and they put a sign on it, they put some sort of a wreath on it, let's say, to show you that it's the holy animal. Feeling sorry of echad beribo, It fell into a flock. All the sheep look the same. You don't know which one it is. 1,000 sheep, 10,000. Rebo is 10,000. 10,000 kosher sheep, one nearby. Nifsad hakol v'nifsal mizbeach. Yeah, these sheep would go to the slaughter. You could eat them and take their wool, but they're never going to be korbans. The chulon. Here's another issue he's going to bring up: the offspring of such defective animals. What do you have? Vilado tehem or valdo tehem? It should be valdo tehem. Wait, what?
That's what I am.
Wait, which one? With a patach or a shiva under the vav? Patach. So it says, yeah, valdo tehem. Why? Because normally children, yilad dehem with the shiva. Vlad and Yeled are very similar. It's the Yud and Vav change places. It's the same shoresh. That's why something born is called a nolad. And in the Torah you have also walad is a word. It says the Sarah didn't have a walad, so used instead of Yeled. Okay, one's a seglet now, and one's I guess the kamitz noun. Okay, some nouns are seglet, some nouns are with kamitzes. When it's kamitz, it's mil ra, and when it's a seglet, it's mil el. So it's between nachash and nachash. Okay, nachash is necromancy, and nachash is a snake. Okay, and there's other examples. Mutarin lam mizbeach. So while dothehem, their offsprings are permissible to the altar. Chutzmi wad nirbath v'nevet muktzeh v'emitat adam she'waladon asur lemizbeach mutan. So all these ones on the 14 on the list, their offspring are kosher for the altar, but not the one that was sodomized, the sodomizing animal. The one that was sodomized, not the rovea, just the nearby, the one that was sodomized, nevedet, the one that was worshipped. Interesting here that in halacha yud gimel, like all the previous halachas, the Rambam is referring to all these animals in the masculine, a nearby, an animal as though it's masculine, and it's rovea, masculine, whereas nirbat is a feminine. It's halachically equivalent. Just now he's referring to it as a feminine noun. Instead of ne'avad, an animal is worshipped, he's ne'avedet. Okay? Umuktzeit. You have muktzeit also, that's the female of muktzah. Muktzeh. You can have muktzah with a kamatz, or you can have muktzet with a taf. Grammatically equivalent. But it's feminine. V'sheimita adam. Or one not heimita to adam. Previous halacha says heimit, put to death, but masculine form. And here it says heimitha, feminine put to death, that killed the person. Their offspring are forbidden just like they are forever. Basically, that's it. So why? Because I'll learn this from Sukkim. See, is there anything else? No, okay. What invalidates the offspring? Why? What happened? Because the Avera happened, the Avera was done to it when the animal was pregnant. That's why it's mentioning feminine. Talking specifically an animal is pregnant. So you have a pregnant animal and someone decides to sodomize it, unfortunately, or to worship this thing, or to set it aside for sacrifice. So this disqualification passes on to the fetus. Because the offspring was with the mother, was part of the mother, at the time it became disqualified. It was like one of its limbs. If it became pregnant after the incident that disqualified it, the Avera happened, or after it killed a person, so its offspring is now kosher for the altar. If it was sodomized when it was already set aside for sacrifice, okay, you can make a chatos or shlamim out of a nekeva. An ola has to be a male. Or if it was still sodomized when it was chulin, and then he dedicated it. Vinis abra and became pregnant. Shevlada mutar. This animal will never be a sacrifice, but because it became pregnant not at the time of the sin. Sorry, the sin didn't happen when it was pregnant, so this animal's offspring is kosher, permissible to the altar. And if roach beitzat treifa, that is a dove, a turtle dove. Actually, no, turtle doves are b'nei yonah, so it's probably not going to lay an egg while it's a korban. So you're talking about a pigeon, because pigeons are adults. Pigeon sacrifice are adult. So your pigeon lays an egg. And your pigeon happens to be a treifa at that point. You know the pigeon's a goner, but laid an egg. So it's a treifa. What's the rule? A treifa lays, you milk a treifa cow. That milk is non-kosher. Rav Shechter's kasha. Normally an animal, what comes out of an animal that's a treifa is itself considered non-kosher. So this turtle dove has, sorry, not turtle, pigeon. This pigeon has laid an egg. This pigeon is a treifa. This egg will hatch. It'll give a chick, and eventually it'll grow into a pigeon itself. So that pigeon is mutter to the Mizbeach. Okay? Very interesting. Very interesting halachas. We're going to learn one last one. Mishtachavela kama. A person worships the kama. What's the kama? The kama is the grain, let's say the wheat, that's standing up in its sheaves, its stalks, it's ready to be reaped. Yeah. A person could do that. He's worshiping his own wheat for whatever reason.
Yes, it could.
Yeah. Chitea mutarin liminachot. So its wheat kernels can be used for the meal offerings in the temple. Why? Sharei tanu. Things have changed. He goes through a few processes. What do you have? When you have the wheat growing there, it's in its stalks of wheat. So you got to reap it, you got to cut it at the bottom, and then you have to. They have to all the malachas. You have to winnow it, and you have to separate the wheat from the chaff, right? And you have to make grains. There's a whole process, like in Masechah Shabbos.
Like you're making it.
Yeah. So nishtanu v'nidmu levladot shel asurim mizbeach shem mitarim. This is like the offspring of Issurei mizbeach, which are mitarim. It's the offspring of the wheat. V'chein behema shepitma b'charshini avodah zarah. He fattened this behema with karshina. They say it's a watercress. Some say karshinin is leeks. They fed the animals leeks, whatever it is. They fed the animal hay that belongs to the idols. It came from the church treasury. Mutar lemizbeach. So this is also, this animal had been fattened with forbidden food. It's still permissible for the altar, sharei nishtanu, because it's gone through a change process. By the way, the basic halacha, there's a chumrah that they say not to eat eggs laid by chickens that have been fed chometz. They say to buy all your eggs before Pesach. Have you heard this one?
No.
Well, no, it's not something. There are people who do this, and also they and here in Israel they put the dairy cows on a special kitnius diet, not grains. If they do feed, most cows are fed hay and grass, right? But they try to make sure that these animals are not fed, and chickens also. They make sure not to feed them true grains as Passover approaches, and to give them things like corn and stuff like that. The other kosher, technically kosher for Passover, even though they're very machmir for kitnios. Say people who have this chumrah would never eat corn on Pesach, right, or rice. Yeah. Whatever it is, they start feeding the animals differently as Pesach approaches. Even though the Gemara seems to say nishtanu. Yeah.
Stomach or intestines.
Well,
just don't eat its stomach or intestines.
Yeah, it's a thing, but they say that if you have like you cut open these animals, you find like grains in their intestinal tracts, that's a chametz problem.
But only for the intestines. It didn't get anywhere else.
I know. So, yeah. Or you just wash it off, you throw it away. So, whatever. It's a chumrah. But I'm saying that there are people who don't eat. They make sure to buy all their eggs before Passover for this reason. There's another Vortigon digger, but we already gone over time, so we'll put it here. We'll begin with Nadav and Avihu and what the next halach has to do with them. Any questions at this point? No? Okay, so we'll call it a night. Wish everybody good Shabbos, and we'll close with the prayer that may we put these halachas to practical use very soon. Amen.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.